Hey, what's happening, y'all? It is the end of October 2022, and it is time for another monthly Audio Mutt update. So this month the first video was a breakdown of our ES335 kit build, which would be this guitar right here. Look at that. Came out great. That was a fun project. So if you haven't checked that video out, go ahead and give it a watch. It was pretty fun. And then we did the music video for my original song Fallen, which is one of, I think I said last update video, it's one of my wife's favorites. So it was pretty cool getting that out there. Next month, we've got a video on DI boxes, just kind of doing a breakdown of what are DI boxes, when should they be used, what are the different options, how does all that work, and then going through some of the different options between like the direct inputs on my various interfaces to versus the different DI box options, how all those sound relative to each other, and just kind of giving a test there. So that's coming, as well as another music video for my original song Crave. That's all coming next month, so be sure to stop by and check all that out. Another thing, just had a quick subject I wanted to talk about here, more kind of vlog style, to give so that these update videos are a little bit more than just an update. Something about me is I am very much a communication focused person. Part of that, I think, possibly comes from growing up as an undiagnosed autistic person. Social things always really eluded me, so I was always kind of a weird person. And once I entered into college and I was struggling with the business degree, that was my original major, but I really leaned heavily into the English major thing. And I think part of that was because I wanted to learn the intricacies of language to help me to communicate with others. And in a lot of ways, that was a good thing. I became more well-spoken. I became more able to speak in front of people. I enlarged my vocabulary and was exposed to a lot of works of literature that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. However, it did have some downsides, one of which is that I have really come to value detailed and thorough information. And a lot of that is also probably just my ASD and my detail-focused nature latching on to the communication side of things. But communicating with neurotypicals and with clients or family and friends that I'm trying to get to support my business is difficult. It is definitely a challenge because I've learned that a lot of people don't value the kind of detailed, thorough, and sometimes excessive communication that I value. And a lot of times those people can find that kind of communication to be patronizing. It's something that I've become so acutely aware of that I was giving a bass lesson the other day. We were talking about some things as far as the bass equipment and how the guitar interacts with the amp. And in the middle of the lesson, I felt like I needed to stop and say, okay, just so you know, I don't know what your basis of knowledge is. I don't want to presume that you do or don't know anything. So if I say anything that you already know, please don't be offended. I'm not trying to be patronizing. And I've noticed that in a lot of conversations, I do that a lot because I become afraid of leaving a gap of knowledge or assuming a certain base of knowledge that who I'm talking to may or may not have. I understand that some people may find that to be insulting or patronizing, whereas others find it refreshing and appreciate the extra information. It's a really hard thing to balance, and that can be really difficult, like with family and friends who I would like to support my business, but they don't understand it. And because they don't value that kind of detailed communication, they don't necessarily ask the questions about, okay, well, talk to me about your business plan, or, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And then fill in those gaps and arrive at a mutual knowledge base. Same thing with clients. You deal with certain clients who some may ask all the questions and they may be extremely open to receiving all the explanations and really try to understand what it is that you're doing for them and what information you need from them to do the work. But then there's other clients who they're hiring you to do a job because they don't have the time, energy, or knowledge to do it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to worry about it. They don't want to know. They just want you to get it done for them, which is fine. We have to deal with both personality types. But it's that learning to work with a personality type opposite to yours and a communication style that's opposite to yours that can be very, very, very challenging. It certainly is for me, especially with creative work. It's what we do is inherently subjective. Yes, there's some things that as experts in this field, we know how things should sound. We know some of the best processes to go through. And the client may or may not appreciate what we know to be expected. And what they think they want may not be what they need. But at the same time, if the client's the one paying the bills, and this is what they want, you kind of have to give them what they want. But if they get what they want and it falls flat, we all know the blame isn't going to fall on them. They're going to say, well, this person didn't do a good job. So how do we bridge that gap between needing to communicate to make sure that we get them what they need and that we have the information we need, and also trying to be an effective communicator? It's something that I've been wrestling with, especially because of my natural tendencies. I believe that more communication is better, that the more thorough we are, the more detailed we are, the more everybody wins. And the more we all learn to have a mutual understanding of each other, because everyone's different, everyone has different tendencies and styles, and that's great. That's one of the wonderful things about our world. But there's also an expectation among certain people to just be the same, to just understand, to just be able to intuit what they mean rather than have them explain it. And that's a difficult challenge for me. It's something that I routinely struggle to overcome. As far as tips for how to deal with that, one of the things that I found is to be upfront with a lot of this stuff. And with clients, if they're new, to have the conversation with them about this is a subjective work. There are things that I know are going to work best and will gladly offer my expertise and try and do to the best of my ability. There are certain wants and desires you're going to have. Don't be afraid to be involved. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to let me know what your desires are. But then also don't be intimidated or upset when I provide to you what the professional solution would be to what I think ultimately you're going to need versus what you think you want. And so long as we maintain that open dialogue, the end product may take slightly more time, but it will be infinitely higher quality. And that's just the way that I go about things. I would say that with freelancers, one of the things is, as time goes on, that we will naturally draw clients who fit with our communication style. So for every client that just wants someone who can intuit and know exactly what they didn't say, there is a freelancer who that's their preferred method of communication anyway, is just don't get involved. I know what to do. I know how to read the room or read the client, and I can just do it. And for every client who wants a little bit more involvement, who wants to be able to ask questions and understand and maybe even learn to do some of this themselves next time, or who just wants to have some input. There is a freelancer like me who wants more of that open communication. And our styles also grow and change and flex over time. As the years go on, I might learn to be better at intuiting people. I'll never be as good at it as a neurotypical person, but I can get better. And so I might be able to work better with those clients who tend to be very abrupt. And people who start out in this as a freelancer and don't want a whole lot of questions, don't want people involved, might grow to value getting a little bit more feedback from their clientele. But either way, I think it's important for us to consider constructive communication. And if you're watching this and you are looking for an audio freelancer, pay attention to the feedback and the communications that you give people, and we all need to work on self-awareness and understanding how we communicate versus how others communicate, and how do we communicate better and work together as people. Constructive communication looks like, hey, I really liked that drum fill that you did as the second verse goes into the chorus. But I do think maybe the mix is a little bit, like it sounded a little muddy, like it might have a little bit too much low end. I don't know. You're the expert here. So in that, there was something positive. You let the person know that you did appreciate something they were doing. And then you had an actionable item that you would have liked to see corrected. Versus a lot of feedback that we may get from clients that just says, I don't know, man. I don't know if I like it. So as a creative in an area like audio, music, anything creative, whether it's visual art or musical art or anything we do, it's so subjective that I don't like it can mean any number of things. And so if you provide a freelancer with that limited feedback, they just have to guess how to respond. And it will end up taking forever. Not forever, that's hyperbolizing, but it will end up taking a lot longer to get you the product that you want. And I can give you an example of this. So when I was working for that school district, one of my first tasks was to try and get a new website design up and operational. However, the district uses a third-party web platform. As far as the actual overall design, the district itself doesn't do a whole lot of that. And then there was my boss, who was the end decision maker on the aesthetics there. So for a long time, what ended up happening is I would talk to the third-party web host. I would pick one of their templates and have them change the colors to the school colors, give them some basic images so that they could kind of switch stuff out and kind of give us a mock-up of what it would look like. And then I would take that to my boss, and she would say, I don't like it. And I would try and go, okay, well, what don't you like? So then I would go back to the third-party web host, provide them that information, and they would do all this work to kind of change that. It would come back to me, and we went around in this circle for about a year. It was a long thing. Finally, my solution was I had to pressure my boss to sit down with me and let me go through, okay, what do you like about this? What do you like about this? What do you like about this? I didn't communicate with the actual web host for a significant amount of time. And then I took their templates and kind of chopped them up in Photoshop using masks and stuff, and then built a mock-up. And would take that mock-up to the boss and get little bits of feedback and adjust things. And eventually was able to get her to sit down with me and adjust some things in real time and get it to where she was finally okay, I'm happy with that. That's it. That's the website. And then I just sent that to the third-party host and said, this is what we want. It wasn't exactly their template, but it was a combination of like 3 other templates, so they are able to implement it fairly easily. But that's what happens when we don't have constructive communication, when we're not purposeful with our communication, and when someone who's hiring a creative doesn't communicate with that creative in a meaningful way. All that to say, if you're looking to hire a creative, be open to having some real communication with them and frequent communication and letting them know what you want and letting them guide you towards what you need. If you can do that, and if us as creatives can be open to inviting our clients into that process, I think we'll all end up with much better end products. But that's just a thought for today. Hopefully it's a little bit useful, or at least interesting. If you have any thoughts on that, any experience, leave them in the comments. Let us know how you have navigated that situation, either from the freelancer side or the client side. I'd be really interested to hear how that has played out for you and what you would recommend. Maybe you can help me overcome some of my challenges with being an over-communicator. Links to the website, the merch store, and to the videos that we talked about here will be down below. Feel free to go check those out. We've got some good stuff there and more good stuff coming out. But as always, I appreciate you. You're awesome. And have a good one.